Welcome to another edition of Inside Drag Racing, a very special edition and possibly one of my favorites. Coming to you from Gainesville, Florida, and the Hilton Hotel here at the campus of the University of Florida. And this is the 20th Annual International Drag Racing Hall of Fame Induction Ceremony, brought to you by Lucas Oil. Tonight, you are going to get to meet some of the biggest innovators, some of the brightest stars who made drag racing happen the way it did for all of us all throughout the years. And one of those, well, he's got something deep in my heart, and that's Chevrolet. Now, he was known by many nicknames like Mr. Reflexes and Mr. Chevrolet being the best known, and that is Dickie Harrell, one of 8 that are getting inducted into the Hall of Fame tonight. Now, Dickie Harrell, he drove everything Chevrolet. He was actually backed by Chevrolet back when the manufacturers were doing things like that. And even when Chevrolet pulled that backing from him, he didn't back away. Nope, he kept driving the Chevrolets. As a matter of fact, quite an innovator, too. Got into the funny cars later on. But unfortunately, Dickie Harrell, we lost him in 1971 in a drag racing accident in Canada. But to find out more, let's go to the podium.
I'm honored to be presenting Dick Harrell for induction into the Hall of Fame. It'll be the easiest induction I've ever done. When the Hall was instituted, there were a handful of individuals who probably should have been inducted by acclamation, regardless of whether they were retired or met the age requirements. We all know them by a single name, people like Wally, Big, Shirley, Snake, and a few others. I sincerely believe Dick Harrell is part of that group. His impact on drag racing and the entire aftermarket industry was huge. Not only was he a pioneering funny car driver who was a purist who stayed with Chevrolet engines in his cars, he was also one of the first racers to field a multi-car team with 18-wheeler transporters. Beyond funny cars, his active participation in the AHRA heads-up superstock class resulted in what we know as pro stock today. From his affiliation with specialty auto manufacturers like Yanko Chevrolet, for whom he built the first 25 high-horsepower street machines, to his work with Nicky and later Fred Gibb Chevrolet, Harrell built cars that were highly sought after. Today, real versions of those cars are worth a fortune, if you can even find one. I could stand here and run through an impressive list of race victories, but Dick Harrell was about a lot more than that. He died in Toronto 39 years ago in a racing accident, and even in death, he positively influenced our sport. Up until then, 200-mile-an-hour funny cars were running on passenger car front tires. His death resulted in the development of purpose-built tires for funny cars, making them safer for everyone. It was the perfect legacy.
Dickie Harrell was a man of a Chevrolet. That was what he loved, and that's all he ever had. They put him in the Superstock Hall of Fame many years ago, so it was long overdue that he be in the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. And this Chevrolet sitting here would have been a favorite of Dick. He just loved Chevrolets, and it didn't make any difference what kind they were. They could be small block, big block, whatever. But he loved them so much, he would buy Chevrolets, take them to his shop, and convert them for the customers. And if you got one of those Chevrolets, you were a lucky person. He was a great guy, a lovable guy, but like I say, he was Mr. Chevrolet, Dickie Harrell, and we welcome him into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame.
A Southern California native, 2010 Hall of Fame inductee Bill Simpson actually attended his first drag race at the age of 15. After moving from his 40 coupe to a dragster, in 1958, it was in that very dragster that he had an accident due to a faulty handbrake. Well, it wasn't long after that that Bill Simpson decided that need to find a better way to stop these cars going faster and faster speeds. And after a lot of research and development, that's when Bill Simpson came up with the very first cross-form drag chute. But if you know the name Simpson, you know that's not the only thing Bill Simpson developed. What do you say we go to Big Daddy Don Garlits down at the Museum of Drag Racing in Ocala, Florida to find out more.
Kathy, you know, Bill Simpson is a guy that's very controversial. In fact, he's the guy that put on one of these fire suits and had them douse him with gasoline, and they threw a match on him. And he was in that thing for 10 or 15 seconds and did not get hurt. Now, there's a man that has the courage of his convictions. These fire suits were unbelievable. I mean, they would really withstand a lot of heat. If I'd have had one of these in South Carolina, 1959, I'd have just got out of the car laughing, fixed the car, and continued on in the race. But leather jackets didn't do what these suits did. And Bill Simpson is one of the guys, in fact, to me, one of the main guys in safety. In fact, that's why he's going into the Hall of Fame tonight, because of all his safety innovations. The helmets, the suits, the gloves, the boots, the underwear. He designed everything because, you know, the dragsters weren't that dangerous, but those funny cars that really got hot inside there, and it stayed hot a long time. So you had to have at least 10 or 15 seconds of protection. And Bill Simpson is the man that gave that to the racers, and we all thank him from the bottom of our hearts.
I've known Bill Simpson since 1967, 68, when I was just a kid in Texas trying to race. He was a drag racer. That's really what he was. That's what he loved to do. What got Bill into this business is pretty unique, though. He was drag racing in his dragster, blew an engine, kicked the crankshaft out, went through the end of the track, ran into the culvert, broke both arms, almost killed him. Now, many of you are not going to know this, but Bill Simpson was an Indianapolis race car driver. He finished 13th at the Indianapolis 500. Bill Simpson was certainly put on this earth to keep us safe. Bill, I owe you everything. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Back in about 1966 or 67, when Pete Conrad and I were pretty good pals, they were building the Moon Rover. And I did the restraint system on the Moon Rover, and that thing's still up there on the moon. And there's a little embroidered piece underneath the seat belt, and it says, "This seat belt was designed and built by drag racers." I really think that of the accolades that I've received in my career, this has been probably the best. And I thank you guys.
This Hall of Fame edition of Inside Drag Racing is brought to you by ARP, the world leader in racing fastener technology. By Low-Car Motorsports, the evolution of excellence. And by Coker Tire, your source for Phoenix and M&H drag tires.
Low-Car Performance Products, building American quality with a lifetime warranty. For over 20 years, Low-Car has provided the best possible products and service. Drag racers, Low-Car has you covered. Low-Car offers 2 types of dial-in boards, no drilling or welding required. Low-Car's anchor-tight locking flexible transmission dipstick is NHRA accepted for use in all categories of competition. And check out the latest from Low-Car. To learn more or to order your free Low-Car catalog, log on to lowcar.com. Low-Car, quality plain and simple.
ARP, the world leader in fastener technology, the fasteners of champions.
Any automotive-related thing for the engine, I mean, it's pretty much straight ARP.
We use ARP products, and they're very dependable and reliable, and that's why we use ARP products. Anything to be more consistent or more reliable is really important, so we use ARP for everything we can. If I want to be the best, I got to have the best on my car. I saw ARP was the best, and I decided that was the company I wanted to go with.
ARP, the world leader in fastener technology.
Welcome back to Inside Drag Racing and the 20th Annual International Drag Racing Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Putting the International into this year's inductees, 2010 Hall of Famer Jim Reed from Australia started racing professionally in 1974.
Kathy, in 1974, I traveled to Australia to do a series of match races, and this is the car that I took over. But the man that I was scheduled to match race was Jim Reed, and what a match racer he was. Beat me 2 out of 3 that night, but he went on to win many Australian championships, and he's a true champion, and he's still involved in drag racing in Australia, and he certainly belongs in the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Mr. Jim Reed.
This is really fantastic for me. For many, many years, people come along and ask me, what is your most defining moment in drag racing? I think tonight is that defining moment for me, and I can answer everybody. Thank you.
After a brief stint during World War II in the Navy, 2010 Hall of Fame inductee Jack Engel returned from the war to open up a small machine shop behind his father's service station, where he rebuilt some engines. But more importantly, what really changed history for Jack Engel was that cam grinding machine that he built and started kicking out cams that everybody wanted. And for more about that, what do you say we check in with Big Daddy Don Garlits in Ocala, Florida?
Jack Ingle wasn't a guy that had a big ego like All Outdoors. He didn't care if Keith Black stamped his name on the cam. In fact, he sent them over to Keith Black's with KB number such and such on the back of the cam, depending on which grind Keith wanted. Didn't even have Ingle on them. But every one of Keith Black's engines that went out of Keith Black Racing Engines in Southgate had a Jack Ingle cam in it. That speaks volumes, because Keith Black could have bought any cam he wanted, and he chose Jack Ingle. And that's one of the reasons that the selectors put Jack Ingle into the Drag Racing International Hall of Fame.
Inducted into an elite group of racers called the Greek Fleet, 2010 Hall of Fame inductee Leroy Goldstein drove both Top Fuel and Funny Car. He drove for the Ram Chargers, and in 1970 was the very first driver to put a funny car into the sixes with a 695 pass in New York. But the Ram Chargers wasn't the only very famous group that Leroy drove for. Actually drove for another group of people who are also in the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame. And with more on that, let's go to Ocala, Florida, and Big Daddy Don Garlits at the Museum of Drag Racing.
Kathy, Leroy Goldstein never owned a race car, but he sure drove a lot of them. I remember Jim Nickel told me he picked him up hitchhiking down the road when he was a young kid, and that's how he got into drag racing, and Nickel took him with him, and he was on the crew. And he elevated himself to, he drove for Nickel, he drove the Wiener Schnitzel, and he drove for the Ram Chargers for many years, and he drove for Candies and Hughes and won a championship driving the funny cars. He could drive dragsters, he could drive funny cars, he could drive anything. He was a really likable guy, very versatile, and we welcome him into the International Drag Racing Hall of Fame.
Al's Liner is the only professional-grade truck bed liner kit designed for the do-it-yourself user. Are you looking for a coating that allows you to control the texture, color, thickness, and even the hardness of the material? Al's gives you all this and more. Easily applied to metals, wood, concrete, fiberglass, or just about anything by spraying with our custom spray gun or brushing and rolling. Al's gives you the options, accessories, and additives you want at a fraction of the cost. We have the background and knowledge to make even the first-time applicator look like a pro. To get more information or to find a retailer near you, log on now to alsliner.com.
Fuel Lab has taken fuel delivery to the next level, digital. Fuel Lab Prodigy fuel pumps are the automotive aftermarket's first and only speed-controllable DC brushless-driven fuel pumps. Our award-winning patent-pending design offers improved durability, compatibility, substantially higher flow rates, and lower current draw than traditional DC brushed motor-based pumps. Fuel Lab Prodigy pumps are compatible with gasoline, diesel, methanol, and ethanol, have internal speed control for variable flow operation, and no brushes to wear out or corrode. Learn more at fuellab.com. Randy's racing filters will not only give you a horsepower edge above our competitors' filters, it will help your engine last longer. That's because Randy's racing filters are designed with over 30 years of engineering experience in industrial filtration. Randy's uses industrial duty textile filter media instead of cotton gauze or paper. And Randy's filters are washable, so you can use them again and again and again. Randy's makes them for sprint car, vintage, modifieds, or custom for any racing application or high performance use. To learn more, log on to racingfilter.com.
Welcome back to Inside Drag Racing, a pioneer of custom-built axles. 2010 Hall of Fame inductee Bob Stange was actually the developer of something pretty interesting, the